Chapter 16. A Little Home. The Saturday bundle of the Omaha World Tribune got dropped off before dawn, same as the weekday papers. But all the subscribers in Plattsford, Nebraska understood that the Saturday paper didn't get delivered until about 9 o'clock. Saturday was the day that the paperboy stayed in bed an extra hour or so. But not this Saturday. Ted was up and out the kitchen door at his regular time. Even though it was the weekend, and even though he could ride out to the Anderson farm any time he'd finished his chores, he wanted to go before he delivered his papers. He wanted to get there before the clues got any older. And this time, Ted was prepared. He had 5 or 6 plastic sandwich bags for collecting evidence, some long tweezers for picking up small clues, a magnifying glass, a cheap plastic camera with 9 shots left on the counter, a flashlight, his field notebook, and 2 freshly sharpened pencils. Ted noticed something odd before he even got to the house. There was a small patch of soft ground next to the mailbox where the driveway crossed the ditch. He'd been expecting to see a set of tire tracks going in toward the farmhouse, and the same tracks coming back out. But it looked like there were tracks from 2 different kinds of tires. Had there been 2 cars? 2 police cars? Or maybe Deputy Linwood's car had snow tires on the rear wheels and regular tires up front. Hard to say. Ted pulled out his camera and snapped a picture. Around back, both basement doors were still wide open, just like on Friday morning. There were a lot of early morning shadows, so Ted decided to look inside first. The light in the backyard would be better later on. The flashlight let Ted have his first real look around the basement. He saw the wooden crate he'd almost tripped on. Shining the light in a wide arc, he saw some broken mason jars, a row of paint cans on rough wooden shelves over near one wall, water and steam pipes hanging overhead, a fuel oil tank, a big furnace, and lots of spider webs. The dirt floor gave the place a damp, musty smell. There wasn't much to investigate, so Ted headed up the stairs. The kitchen was the way he remembered it. Can opener on the counter, empty water jug by the sink. But when he opened the cabinet above the counter, a surprise. Beef stew, soup, instant coffee, sterno, matches, almost everything he'd brought, all neatly arranged. But it made sense. You don't stop and bring groceries when the police take you away. Ted thought, I should take this stuff after all. I paid for it. But it seemed like a lot to carry around. Maybe later. He closed the cabinet and went to the living room. The place was messy, but it looked like Deputy Linwood had given them enough time to pack up all their things. Ted began a careful search of the living room, but his heart wasn't in it. He wasn't feeling much like a detective. It was more like he was looking for proof that April and her family had actually been there. All he found were 6 crumpled granola bar wrappers and a small order form for X-Men t-shirts, something Artie must have torn out of a comic book. On the stairs going to the second floor, Ted saw footprints in the dust. He stepped on the first few treads to be sure they felt solid, and then walked up. Some kids had been in the house, probably right after the Andersons moved. All the closet doors were open, and there were shoe boxes and newspapers and coat hangers scattered across the floors, along with some broken bottles. Someone had written and drawn pictures with black and red spray paint all over the walls in the bedrooms. It made the place feel creepy, sort of dangerous. Ted thought, no wonder April and her family stayed downstairs. He would have left right then, but the upper windows weren't boarded up, so the morning sunlight made the rooms feel almost cheerful in spite of vandalism. Ted had an idea, and he went to the front bedroom. He was looking for something, and there, in front of the window on the right, he saw fresh footprints in the dust. He snapped a photo. Those had to be April's footprints, right in front of the window where he had first seen her face, and he thought, that was less than a week ago. It seemed much longer. There was a closed door in the hallway, and when Ted opened it, he saw a set of narrow steps going up to the attic, and again there were footprints in the dust. The attic was another surprise. It looked like the Andersons had left almost everything they had stored up there. Ted could see why. Most of the stuff was in bad shape. 3 wicker-bottomed chairs with tattered seats, a broken iron bed frame, stacks of empty cardboard boxes, a painted dresser with a split top, a broken mirror on its own wooden stand, 2 big steamer trunks with the leather straps chewed to bits by the mice, a wooden baby cradle with a missing rocker. Almost everything he saw was broken or damaged in some way, but it still made him feel like he was looking at a family's history. Standing in the center, under the peak of the roof, Ted looked toward one end of the room and then toward the other, and that's when he noticed something unusual. Amid all of the dusty rummage and cobwebs loaded with dead flies and moths, the window facing the northwest was spotless, perfectly clean. Ted went closer, watching his step on the loose floorboards. Someone had pulled a sagging armchair in front of the window. On the floor to the side, he saw some dirty rags, the ones used to clean the glass, and Ted knew instantly what they were. Little blue pajamas and some tiny t-shirts, baby clothes, from the 2 bags downstairs in the living room. On one arm of the chair was a book, an old one, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Looking at the footprints in the dust, Ted could tell which cardboard box it had been taken from. He picked up the book and sniffed it. Old. His mom had some books like this, and the paper had a special smell. Ted saw a bookmark, and when he opened the brittle yellow pages, it fluttered to the floor. It was a folded Snickers wrapper. Ted suddenly knew where he was. He was in April's hideout, the place she came to be by herself. A place she had cleaned and dusted, a quiet place with a beautiful view out across the prairie. April had made herself a little home. Ted sat down, and as he looked out the attic window, he saw how April had seen him coming, that first afternoon when he tried to sneak up close. Over the roof of the barn, he could still see the path he had left as he'd walked through the long grass. He would have had a hard time putting it into words, but sitting there with her book in his hands, looking out the window she had cleaned, Ted felt like he and April could have become friends. Maybe they already had. He leaned over, picked up the folded candy wrapper, and tucked it back between the pages. And as he put the book into his shoulder bag, Ted wished he'd had a chance to say goodbye.